got our third arrangements of microphones. We've been trying to work out the microphone situation. So far, the other two have not been satisfactory. So this is not the courtroom that I normally
This will be
present
heartbreaking
cases in.
testimony.
So, anyway, hopefully we've done
Victim
better.
impact.
If you face the clerk and be sworn, please, ma'am.
And her family.
Solemnly swear your testimony will be
Very
true,
brave
whole
woman.
truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Have a seat and slide up the microphone, please.
Markel.
Please spell. How are you related to Daniel Markel?
I'm his mother.
I'd like to approach with what I marked as State's Exhibit 197.
Yes,
Recognize State's 197?
yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
This is Danny with his older son Benjamin and his younger son Lincoln.
Is this a fair and accurate photo of your son and his two children?
Definitely, yes.
Judge, at this time, I'd ask to introduce State's 197.
Any objection?
No, Judge, no
Be
objection.
admitted.
May I publish?
You may.
Mrs. Markel, have you prepared a victim impact statement for the jury here today?
Yes, I have.
I'm gonna approach and show you what I've marked as State's 198. Recognize State's 198?
Yes, I do.
Is that a fair and accurate copy of the statement you intend to read today?
Yes,
Judge, at this time, I'd ask to introduce 198 as a court exhibit only.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right. It will be admitted as a court exhibit.
Give us just a moment to get our equipment going.
And Ms. Markel, I would ask that you stick to the reading what is said, and not ad lib from it, please.
sure. Thank you.
You have a copy?
I do.
She has a copy, Judge. All right, Mrs. Markel, you may proceed.
My name is Ruth Markel. I am Dan Markel's mother. I am reading this statement on behalf of my family. Parents are not supposed to outlive their children. A mother should never have to bury her own child. Perhaps this is why there are words to describe someone who loses a spouse or their parents, a widow or an orphan. But there is no word in the English language for someone who loses a child. And yet, because of the acts of a few, my son Dan's life was cut very short, and I have been forced to experience the unthinkable and to live a life filled with unimaginable pain and heartbreak that no mother should ever have to endure. Dan's family, friends, and colleagues and mentors describe Dan as a caring, uplifting, and inspiring person to everyone around him. Dan was a devoted son and family member, cherishing family celebrations and always making time for lengthy phone calls with us and other family members in Canada, United States, and Israel. As a son, everything about Dan and everything he did made us proud. From his love of music, dance, sports, and travel, to his dedication to and hard work in school, culminating in his acceptances into Harvard University. As an undergraduate in Cambridge, England, where he earned a master's degree in political theory, and finally Harvard Law School, where he received his JD and began his impressive legal career. After graduating law school, Dan served as a law clerk for a federal circuit court judge, and then worked as an associate at a prestigious law firm in Washington. Of all my son's accomplishments, however, I am most proud of the father Dan was to his beautiful boys, Lincoln and Ben. It is hard to capture in words the joy and excitement I felt when Dan became a father and I became a grandmother. I derived even more joy and happiness watching Dan raise his two boys. Dan was a present, devoted, loving, supportive, selfless father, and he always acted with the best interest of his boys. Dan regularly attended the boys' daycare, leading holiday programs for all the children. Dan's office and home were covered with the boys' drawings, and the family's living room was always full of the boys' toys. Regardless of the situation, Dan always put his children's safety and well-being ahead of his own. Lincoln and Ben loved their father. He was their hero. Dan offered the world his love, his wisdom, opinion, his energy, his friendship, and his warmth. Since the day he was born, Dan was alert and energetic. He did not waste this energy. He used it to live life to the fullest. For example, even in his short life, he pursued his passion for travel, and he lived in many cities: Montreal, Toronto, Boston, New York, London, Jerusalem, Washington, D.C., Phoenix, San Francisco, Miami, and Tallahassee. He made many friends all over the world and continued to stay in touch with everyone he befriended. When Dan moved to Tallahassee, he quickly became an integral part of the community. Dan made many close friends at FSU and in the broader Tallahassee community. He regularly attended community events and frequently hosted others at his home. Dan was on the board of the Shomrei Torah Synagogue and frequently attended services, holidays, and children's programs. Dan's murder has not only deprived his large network and community of a dedicated and caring family member and friend, it has also deprived the world of a brilliant attorney, teacher, and legal academic. Dan also co-founded a blog called Prof's Blog, which focuses on a variety of topics related to law and life. Due to Dan's amazing dedication and tireless work, Prof's Blog continues to grow and inspire legal scholars and students around the world. In addition to Dan's scholarship, Dan was a devoted professor who was deeply involved in the FSU community. Dan was passionate about teaching, and his students adored him. Dan served on the law school's recruiting committee and worked to recruit high-level academics to FSU, including by personally hosting most of the recruits and new faculty members. Dan's energy, drive, and sociability enhanced the student body and the faculty of the FSU College of Law. As the court knows, Dan's life was brought to a sudden, abrupt, and tragic end when he was murdered in July 2014. The losses sustained and the damage caused by this crime cannot be overstated. In one fell swoop, our son, brother, and the father of two young boys were all killed. My life was shattered. Dan's death has caused us deep pain that is both disruptive and permanent. After the death of a loved one, you are supposed to face the loss, the void, the experience, the grief, and maybe get closure if you are lucky. When you lose a child, life's progression comes to a complete stop. And the grief comes to a grief stop. When my life was shattered, Dan's death has caused us deep pain that is both disruptive and permanent. After the death of a loved one, you are supposed to face the loss, the void, the experience, the grief, and maybe get closure if you are lucky. When you lose a child, life's progression comes to a complete stop. And the grief comes to a grief stop. When my life was shattered, Dan's death has caused us deep pain that is both disruptive and permanent. After the death of a loved one, you are supposed to face the loss, the void, the experience, the grief, and maybe get closure if you are lucky. But when you lose a child, life's progression comes to a complete stop, and the grief and pain of a mother who loses her child never ends. For me, closure and normalcy are only words in a dictionary, not a reality that I will ever experience again. We have waited for more than 5 years for those involved in Dan's murder to be brought to justice, which has only exacerbated my pain, grief, anxiety, and health. It is very cumbersome to navigate and participate in the legal processes encountered in the days, weeks, and years following the murder. From the day I learned about Dan's death, I experienced a life sentence. But I know that even after justice occurs, Dan's murder will continue to torment me for the rest of my life.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you.
Markel.
I'm not finished, wait, I'm still starting. Other lives were
Wait a
just,
minute, stop.
what's wrong?
Oh, there is another page. It just looked
Okay,
like the
I'm
end.
sorry.
Okay, are we okay?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Other lives were destroyed as well. The lives of Dan's two sons, my grandchildren, were forever turned upside down as a result of this crime. Benjamin was 4 years old, and Lincoln was only 3 years old when their father was murdered. Benjamin and Lincoln have been forever deprived of a relationship with their father and will grow up and go through life without a father. These boys have also been robbed of their childhoods as they are forced to confront and try to understand the unthinkable crime of murder at such a young age. We, all including Phil, Shelley, and her family, have been traumatized by Dan's tragic death. Dan's nieces and nephews, ranging from ages 8 to 13, were forced to confront murder at a young age. Dan's older relatives could not comprehend this tragedy. My maternal 97-year-old uncle had a special bond with Dan and suffered greatly from his murder. He gave up and died 3 months later. There is not a single day that goes by when thoughts of Danny do not enter our minds. His murder has been horrible for us, shocking, surreal, hard to understand. Danny is never coming back, but we continue to hope and pray for justice.
Thank you.
You can step in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next witness.
No further witnesses, Your Honor.
Mr. Sanganet?
Yes, Judge, the defense calls Dr. Julie Harper to the stand. Mr. Padilla will be conducting.
Somebody will need to get her. Oh, she's here.
Right there, Your Honor. Come on.
Come on up, man.
Ready to be seated, please?